So if you haven't heard about Skillshare yet, I don't know where you've been, but it is the online learning community where there are thousands of classes for anyone who loves learning and wants to explore their creativity and learn new skills. And in fact, I've been a longtime user of Skillshare since way before they reached out for the sponsorship, and a lot of the skills that I use for this YouTube channel every single day, I learned on Skillshare. And one of my favorite courses was by the man himself, MKBHD, on YouTube Success, where he goes through start to finish on how he produces a YouTube video. And it's not just for people trying to become YouTubers, of course. There are thousands of courses with everything from mastering productivity with Thomas Frank to the basics of singing with Gabriel. So whether you're interested in making a career pivot or trying to level up in your current role, Skillshare has got you covered. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested, the first 1,000 people to use that link in my description box below are going to get their first month of Skillshare free. Seriously guys, check them out. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. What is going on guys, Jesse here. So I still remember the first time I saw a Devialet Phantom speaker in person. It was in their New York showroom in Soho. They played a demo for me and my friends, and I just remember being blown away by the sound and design of their speakers. And ever since then, I've been dreaming of the day that I can own one for myself, but never really being able to pull the trigger because of the crazy price tags. Well, now Devialet has come out with a smaller portable speaker, the Mania, that comes in at a price point that's still very expensive for what it is, but is less than their other stuff. So if you guys haven't heard of Devialet before, they are a French audio company that has a reputation for not only unique design, but also unique technology, particularly when it comes to bass. Like obviously I don't understand it completely, but they've got some really interesting woofer tech that makes their speakers produce a lot more bass than should be possible from the size of the enclosures that their speakers are in. And now they've brought that tech into a smaller, more portable package with the Mania. And I find this to be a really interesting speaker, not only because of the tech, even though it is very impressive, but also because it fills the role of one of my other favorite speakers, the Sonos Move, which up until this point has been largely uncontested in the space that it's trying to occupy. And basically these speakers are a hybrid between a portable Bluetooth speaker and a plug-in Wi-Fi smart speaker that has stuff like Spotify Connect, AirPlay 2, and Alexa. And this may be one of those things where upon first hearing about it, you're gonna wonder why anyone even cares about this category. But the Wi-Fi speaker aspect, like it always being on and ready to play at any time, is really nice because you don't have to physically walk over to the speaker, turn it on, and connect it every time you want to use it. All you have to do is be on your phone, press play, and it's playing out of the speaker. I know, I'm lazy, but whatever. But sometimes you want to be able to take the speakers into different rooms or outside altogether, and that's where the portable Bluetooth speaker aspect comes in really handy. And I think what really facilitates that whole experience is going to be the charging dock, which the Sonos Move comes with in the box, but the Mania, despite costing literally twice as much, must be bought separately for $80 extra, which I think is a little bit ridiculous. But I think if you do get this speaker, you really should think about getting the dock as well, because I think it really completes the whole experience of owning and using this. Because you can really tell that the Mania was designed to be first and foremost a Wi-Fi speaker, with the Bluetooth stuff kind of coming in as almost an afterthought. So without the dock, you're gonna run into some annoying quirks while using the speaker. The first being that after a while of inactivity, the speaker will turn itself off to conserve battery, which does make sense. But the annoying thing is that after turning it back on, it can take up to like a minute to 2 full minutes to reconnect to the Wi-Fi and be ready to play through AirPlay or Spotify Connect or anything like that, which is almost the full length of a song, which is a lot longer than I would like to wait. Alternatively, you can just use this in Bluetooth mode, which is super stable, works really well, but also has some annoying quirks to it as well. Like every time you turn on the speaker, it boots up in Wi-Fi mode, even if you were previously using Bluetooth. And then once you do switch it over to Bluetooth, it doesn't automatically connect to the previous device. So you have to manually go into that device and connect it every single time, which just doesn't make any sense to me, because literally every other speaker, earbud, or headphone I've ever used connects that way. Although a minor complaint about the dock is that it's a little bit hard to get the speaker in the right position every time without looking, and then once you're charging, every time it'll play a tone and pause your music, to let you know that it's charging, which I found to be a little bit disrupting to the whole listening experience. Design-wise, I think this is a pretty good looking speaker. I mean, Devialet is kind of known for this, but this really doesn't look like anything else out on the market right now. And it's definitely got a very futuristic look to it that I know not everybody is going to be into, but personally, I'm a pretty big fan. I do have a couple of issues with the general fit and finish of the product though, and a lot of this stuff aren't things that I would normally mention, but given the price point of the product, I think they were worth a mention. First off, I'm really not a big fan of the shiny plastic that they're using all around the speaker. I think in the marketing materials, it looks great, but in person, it kind of looks and feels a little bit cheap, as if it's trying to pretend to be metal, but definitely looks like it's just plastic covered in some kind of cheap metallic foil. Also on the handle, you can see the seam from the manufacturing process, and that definitely should have been finished a little bit better. And the speaker grills on the bottom on both sides are peeling up a little bit and has a lot more play than I am comfortable with. Also unrelated to build quality, but because it's so symmetrical, it's really hard to tell which buttons are which unless you look really closely. And even though it's portable, it's not very good at being portable. The handle is a really odd shape, which I guess they did for aesthetics, and I do think it looks pretty good, but you can only really get 2 or 3 fingers in there, which is not the most ergonomic position and doesn't feel the best when carrying it around. Also, because of how round it is, you can't really just throw this in the backseat of your car because it's going to roll around, and I don't really feel comfortable throwing this in a bag either because of the exposed woofers. I would really like to see them come out with some sort of hard shell case for this because it would help a lot with the transport of the speaker. Okay, so I know a lot of that stuff seemed like nitpicks, and it's because they were, but at this price point, a lot of that stuff, especially the ones regarding fit and finish, should be a lot more fleshed out. But the real reason you get this and the real reason you pay that Devialet premium is for the sound. And I'll just tell you right now that this does not disappoint. So overall, I'll say that for the price, this sounds about as good as I would expect from an $800 speaker. Like, not especially good or bad for that price. But then when you take into account the size of the speaker, that's when the speaker just doesn't make any sense. Like, it just shouldn't be possible for a speaker of this size to have the amount of low end that it does. And I know a lot of companies like to talk about how much earth-shattering bass that their speakers have, and you know, 90% of the time it's BS, but with this, I was genuinely surprised. Like, you can literally see it with the woofers going absolutely crazy with the right track playing. And I mean, this isn't the first speaker to have passive radiators, but the amount of air that this thing can move is pretty crazy. And the great thing is that this speaker isn't all bass either. It sounds great throughout the entire range, and it's particularly impressive how well this is able to keep distortion to a minimum even at maximum volume. Like, normally with lower end speakers, as you move up in volume, it just gets messier and messier until at the very top you have a distorted mess. But with this, it's more or less able to keep the same sound characteristics throughout the entire range, which is really nice. Like, before I got this speaker, I thought my Sonos Move sounded amazing, and I still think it sounds pretty good, but then when you play it side by side with the Mania, there's just no competition. The Mania sounds so much better, way more low end, and side by side, the Sonos Move's high end sounds just exceedingly harsh as well. And another added benefit of the Mania is that it has a 360 design, so the experience should be more or less the same no matter where you stand in relation to the speaker. This is of course nothing new, but the Mania also does a really good job at spreading out the sound along the vertical axis as well. Like, most 360-degree speakers are pretty good at spreading out the sound along the horizontal axis, but then as soon as you gain or lose a little bit of height, the sound starts to change pretty dramatically. And that can be a problem because these speakers are generally placed on coffee tables, countertops, or just the ground, which are usually at lower heights than your head. So with the Mania, we've got 4 full range drivers pointed outwards at kind of a 45-degree angle upwards, so you've got a pretty good spread all around. Devialet also has a couple of proprietary technologies in here, the first being active stereo calibration, where basically the speaker will be able to alter its sound signature to compensate for where you place it in the room, with the idea being that where you place it in the room has a pretty big effect on the way that the sound reflects off the walls and the furniture, and this speaker will be able to use the internal microphones to detect that and then change the sound accordingly. So for example, if you place this in the corner of a room, it may detect that there's too much bass with all that reflection going on and then turn it down accordingly. And theoretically, this should result in a pretty uniform listening experience no matter where you place this in the room. The second is speaker active matching, where basically they'll be able to change the sound signature of the source audio to best fit this speaker. And lastly, we've got cross stereo architecture, which should give you a stereo image no matter where you're standing in relation to the speaker. Not sure how they're able to get stereo sound out of a single unit like this, but it's there. And I'm not sure how much each of these technologies contribute to how good the sound is, but I can confirm that this sounds very good. This also has an app that's pretty bare bones, but does have an EQ in it if you don't like the way that this is tuned out of the box. I personally don't think you'll need to touch it, but good to have just in case. That great sound does have a downside though, and that's battery life. It's pretty rough. Devialet states 10 hours on their website, but I think that's honestly pretty optimistic because I was definitely able to kill this within a day, which is pretty strange for me because with other speakers, I generally don't have to charge more than once a week. I mean, it does make sense that to power these woofers, it takes a lot of energy. And if the cost of having that great sound is worse battery life, that's a trade I'm willing to make. But if you want a speaker for a weekend trip and not have to charge it throughout that trip, then this probably isn't it. But I mean, overall, this speaker has to be one of my favorite pickups in a long time. I mean, sure, it's not perfect and the value proposition is pretty rough, especially when you consider that you have to buy that charging base separately for an extra $80. And I think a lot of people are gonna be wondering if they should stick with their Sonos Moves or upgrade to this, or if they don't have either yet, should they save their money and go for the Move or pony up and get the Mania? And what I'll say after owning and using both is that the Mania definitely sounds better and not just by a little bit. And of course, it's impossible to quantify how much that's worth, but I think if you're drawn to the features of the Mania and Move, like the hybrid Bluetooth / Wi-Fi speaker, and you want the best sound quality, I mean, this is it. So how much that's worth to you is up to you, but those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Like if you liked it, sub if you loved it, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.